I can get a divorce anytime I want. Rebecca said it the way people announce dinner reservations. Calm, casual, certain the table already belonged to them. She sat across from me in a cream silk blouse, one hand wrapped around a wine glass, the other resting beside her phone screen down on the marble counter. 6 months earlier, that exact phone still used our anniversary as the passcode. Now it used biometric lock, encrypted messaging apps, and a privacy screen filter she claimed came from a cybersecurity seminar in Chicago. I smiled once, slow enough to make her pause, then tapped the gray folder sitting beside my wrist. The sound landed harder than my reply. You still think this is about divorce? Her eyes flicked toward the folder. Tiny movement. Barely there. That was the first honest reaction I'd seen from her in weeks. My name is Ethan Walker, 42 years old, founder of Walker Freight Systems out of Fort Worth, Texas. 8 distribution hubs, 300 employees. Revenue just north of 80 million last year. Most people hear numbers like that and picture private jets and magazine covers. Real wealth looks quieter. It hides inside holding companies, layered trusts, asset partitions, deferred tax structures, and signatures filed years before anyone smells blood in the water. Rebecca learned that too late. The funny part? She used to admire how careful I was. Back when we rented a 600-square-foot apartment above a nail salon and split groceries with a calculator app. Before charity galas. Before investor dinners. Before she started introducing me as the logistics guy instead of her husband. Success sharpened something inside her. I watched it happen slowly. She upgraded friend groups first, then routines, then language. She stopped asking how my day went and started asking which properties sat under direct ownership, which accounts carried liquidity, which entities held controlling shares. The questions arrived dressed as curiosity, though her timing gave her away. She asked about tax shelters right after lunch with her divorced friend Melissa. Asked about revocable trusts after a weekend in Aspen with a hedge fund couple. 3 months ago, she stood in our kitchen pretending to scroll Instagram while taking photos of a capital gains statement left near my laptop. She thought I missed it. I caught the reflection in the microwave door. That night, I called Margaret Sloan, the attorney who structured my father's estate before pancreatic cancer buried him at 58. Margaret rebuilt my entire asset wall within 11 days. Family trust activation, ownership migration, liability separation, digital audit trail. By week 3, forensic accountants traced repeated searches from Rebecca's iPad into marital asset division statutes for Texas community property law. She deleted browser history afterward. Amateur move. Router logs kept everything. Then came the consultation receipt. Downtown Fort Worth. Daniel Price Family Law. Tuesday, 2:14 p.m. Rebecca paid through a secondary Amex. She thought I never noticed. I noticed every damn thing after that. Dates. Transfers. Burner email accounts linked to Dropbox folders labeled Future. She built a divorce strategy like someone preparing a hostile acquisition. The folder on my table carried all of it. Every screenshot. Every transfer request. Every metadata timestamp. Every meeting. Every lie polished into evidence. Rebecca leaned back slowly now, wine untouched. What's in the folder, Ethan? Her voice carried less confidence this time. Better question. Finally, I slid the folder across the marble toward her. She opened it halfway. Her expression tightened almost immediately. First page. Daniel Price invoice. Second page. Printout from her encrypted cloud backup. Third page. Property Shield amendments signed 73 days earlier. Fourth page. A photograph. Rebecca at the Crescent Hotel Lounge in Dallas sitting across from a man named Tyler Green, senior partner at Price Legal Advisory. Tyler wasn't just her affair partner. He was the attorney feeding her the strategy. Rebecca's hand froze on the page. Then her phone vibrated beside the wine glass. One notification lit the screen before she grabbed it. Tyler, he signed anything yet? Rebecca locked the phone screen too fast. Small mistake. Guilty people always rush the wrong detail. Her thumb trembled once before she wrapped both hands around the wine glass again, like she could steady herself through crystal and Cabernet. I leaned back in my chair and watched her eyes scan the pages for damage assessment instead of truth. That told me everything. She already knew the affair mattered less than the money. Tyler Green sat near the bottom of page 4 smiling in a navy suit outside the Crescent Hotel Lounge. Timestamp in the corner. February 18th, 7:42 at night. Rebecca swallowed hard when she reached page 5. Bank routing logs. Shared payment records. Consulting transfers buried under shell invoices from a media branding firm Tyler controlled through an LLC registered in Delaware. She looked up sharply. You hired someone to follow me? Wrong again. That question revealed panic, not innocence. I hired accountants, I said. People who understand numbers better than lies. Silence stretched across the kitchen. 3 years ago, that same kitchen held framed sketches for our dream remodel. Rebecca picked the imported Italian stone herself. Double waterfall edges. Matte brass fixtures. Hidden charging drawers. Every inch designed to scream quiet wealth. Back then she still kissed me before board meetings. Back then she still touched my shoulder when she walked behind my chair. Success rewired her slowly. Like corrosion inside copper wiring. Hard to notice until sparks start jumping. Walker Freight systems exploded after the pandemic freight surge. Warehousing contracts tripled. Regional carriers folded. I bought distressed routes for pennies and rebuilt them under our network. Rebecca loved the acceleration phase. Private dinners. Napa weekends with investors. Charity auctions where she raised paddles beside surgeons and real estate developers. She thrived in rooms where people measured worth through access. Somewhere along the way, marriage became another acquisition to optimize. I saw the shift first through spending patterns. $5,000 at Neiman Marcus turned into 12. 12 turned into 28. Then came consulting lunches billed 3 times a week in Dallas despite her office sitting 15 minutes from our home. I built freight algorithms for a living. Patterns jump out at me. Humans leave data trails everywhere. She forgot that. March 4th. Tyler's phone connected to our guest house Wi-Fi at 1:12 in the afternoon while I attended a distribution summit in Phoenix. Rebecca disabled the indoor cameras the same morning, claiming the system update glitched the network. She forgot the property firewall logs stored device access automatically. April 9th. She transferred $40,000 from our joint investment account into an account ending in 4421 under temporary staging. Tyler's consulting company used the same last 4 digits. Sloppy. Wealthy people grow arrogant fast. They start believing complexity protects them. Margaret Sloan called it emotional overconfidence. Affairs make smart people stupid, she told me during our second strategy meeting. Margaret sat across from me in her downtown office, surrounded by estate law books older than my marriage. Gray suit. Silver watch. Voice sharp enough to cut sheet metal. She reviewed every file Rebecca touched over the last year. Then she circled one line item with her fountain pen. This right here changes everything. I remembered staring at the page while my stomach tightened. A post-nuptial amendment Rebecca signed 18 months earlier during a refinancing package for our Colorado property. She skimmed it beside a champagne brunch before Aspen. Barely looked at the clause. Buried inside Section 14 sat a fidelity provision tied directly to trust access and executive voting rights. Rebecca signed every page herself. Initialed every corner. Margaret looked almost amused when she realized it. Your wife built her own trap, she said quietly. Across the marble counter now, Rebecca flipped to the final page in the folder. Then all color drained from her face. Because the last document was newer than the others. Much newer. Printed 12 hours earlier. Tyler Green had already signed a cooperation agreement. Rebecca stared at Tyler's signature like the paper had turned radioactive in her hands. Her breathing shifted first. Shorter. Faster. She flipped through the last pages again, searching for a loophole. The same way gamblers recheck losing cards hoping mathematics suddenly develops mercy. What did you do to him? She asked quietly. Interesting choice of words. She skipped denial completely. I folded my hands together on the table and watched her carefully. I offered him survival. That answer landed harder than anger would have. Tyler Green spent 15 years building a reputation as one of the sharpest divorce strategists in Dallas. Country club memberships. Private whiskey tastings. Magazine interviews about high-net-worth marital disputes. Men like Tyler survive through leverage. The second leverage disappears, loyalty evaporates right behind it. Rebecca still had not figured that out. 3 weeks earlier, one of my compliance analysts flagged an irregular invoice tied to Walker Freight's Denver subsidiary. $38,000 routed through a consulting vendor that never performed actual work. Tyler used that vendor to funnel retainers from clients trying to conceal asset positioning during divorce proceedings. Most firms ignore details like that. Freight companies survive through pattern recognition. Routes, fuel ratios, inventory drift. Fraud leaves fingerprints everywhere. I hired forensic accountant Benjamin Harlow the same afternoon. Former Internal Revenue Service investigator. 59 years old. Quiet voice. Memory like a steel trap. Ben reconstructed 6 months of financial overlap between Rebecca and Tyler within 4 days. Hotel reimbursements disguised as legal research. Wire transfers broken into increments below mandatory reporting thresholds. Shared reservations under corporate aliases. They thought small numbers looked invisible. Small numbers attract professionals. Huge transactions attract amateurs. Rebecca reached for her wine again, then stopped halfway when she realized her hand shook too hard. Tyler would never betray client confidentiality. I almost smiled at that. Tyler betrayed his own wife before he betrayed you. Sequence matters. That sentence cut deep. Her jaw tightened instantly. She never knew about Tyler's wife. Of course she did not. Affairs survive through selective storytelling. Tyler sold her the same fantasy every middle-aged narcissist sells during secret hotel dinners. You understand me. My marriage died years ago. We deserve happiness. I had heard the script before. Same structure. Different expensive watch. Rebecca pushed the folder closed with sudden force. You monitored my accounts. Our accounts, I corrected calmly. The ones attached to my corporate guarantees and federal compliance exposure. Another mistake people make during betrayal? They shrink marriage down to emotions while ignoring legal infrastructure. Walker Freight Systems operated across 7 states. Federal contracts touched 3 distribution hubs. Every financial move connected to risk exposure, lender oversight, insurance liability, and executive review obligations. Rebecca approached divorce like social warfare. I approached it like operational containment. That difference changed everything. Her phone buzzed again against the marble. This time she ignored it completely. Smart move. Too late. I already knew the message contents before the screen even lit up. Tyler panicked after signing the cooperation agreement. Men who build careers manipulating emotions crumble fast once their own money enters the blast radius. Margaret leveraged him perfectly. She threatened disclosure to the Texas Bar Association tied to hidden client billing and improper advisory conduct during active marital asset concealment. Tyler folded inside 48 hours. Gave us emails, audio files, consultation notes. One recording hit especially hard. Rebecca played it twice during her meeting with him. I memorized every word after Margaret forwarded the transcript. Once Ethan signs the restructuring transfer, Rebecca said during that recording, I will finally have enough to leave clean. Leave clean. Funny phrase. Like marriages operate like hotel checkouts. Settle the bill. Collect the receipt. Walk away polished. I stood slowly from my chair and carried my empty glass to the sink. Rebecca watched me carefully now. Fear changes people fast. Her confidence had faded into calculation. She started reassessing exits, timelines, damage exposure. I recognized the look immediately. Same expression executives. Where seconds before hostile takeover announcements hit the conference room screen. Then her phone rang again. This time the caller ID stopped her cold. Margaret Sloan. Rebecca let the phone ring 3 times before answering. Smart people buy time when panic hits. Her voice came out controlled, though the edges sounded tighter now. Margaret. She avoided looking at me while she spoke. Another tell. Liars protect eye contact early. Fear breaks that instinct apart. Margaret Sloan never wasted syllables. I heard enough through the speaker to understand the direction immediately. Rebecca, I suggest you listen carefully before making another financial move tonight. Rebecca straightened in her chair. Excuse me. Your access privileges tied to the Aspen Property Trust ended at 4:17 this afternoon. The banking institutions received formal notice 30 minutes later. Rebecca blinked hard. There it was. Real fear. Raw this time. The Aspen property mattered more than the marriage ever did during the last year. She loved that house because other wealthy women envied it. 12,000 square feet overlooking Snowmass. Heated stone floors. Wine cellar. Architectural Digest featured 2 winters ago. Rebecca treated that house like proof she won at life. Margaret kept talking calmly. 3 additional holdings entered restricted review pending forensic reconciliation. I advise against attempting external transfers. Rebecca finally snapped her eyes toward me. You froze my accounts? Correction, Margaret said smoothly through the phone. Mr. Walker protected corporate exposure after discovering evidence of fiduciary compromise. Rebecca stood up so quickly the chair legs scraped hard across the floor. This is insane. Margaret paused just long enough to sharpen the silence. Insane would involve emotional decisions. Ethan spent 7 weeks preparing documentation. 7 weeks. Rebecca looked genuinely stunned by that number. She still thought this started tonight. She still pictured herself as the first strategist at the table. That misunderstanding fascinated me more than the affair itself. Marriage teaches people dangerous assumptions. Rebecca assumed. Emotional attachment weakened my ability to think structurally. She forgot I built regional logistics systems during fuel crises, labor shortages, and federal audits. Pressure sharpens me. It always has. You manipulated legal structures behind my back. Rebecca fired into the phone. Margaret answered instantly. Your husband executed rights already established through signed postnuptial agreements and executive asset partitions you reviewed personally during the Colorado refinancing. Rebecca's breathing grew uneven again. She remembered now. Aspen. Brunch. Mimosa glasses sweating beside loan packets thick enough to stop a bullet. She skimmed signatures while texting Tyler under the table. I remember watching her laugh at something on her screen while initialing Section 14. Human arrogance always leaves fingerprints. Margaret lowered her voice slightly. There is another issue you should understand immediately. Rebecca swallowed hard. What issue? Silence stretched for 2 seconds. Then Margaret delivered the kill shot. The internal ethics review connected to Tyler Green already reached preliminary inquiry stage with the Texas bar. Rebecca's face drained completely. That mattered. Tyler losing his law license changed everything. Affairs survive embarrassment sometimes. Financial predators rarely survive professional collapse. You reported him? Rebecca whispered. Margaret ignored the emotional angle entirely. Mr. Green submitted cooperation materials voluntarily after disclosure risk became evident. Voluntarily. Beautiful word. Clean. Clinical. Ruthless. Rebecca pressed her hand against the counter like she suddenly needed physical support. Tyler would never hand over privileged material. Tyler handed over much more than material, Margaret replied. He provided sworn testimony. That sentence hit like structural failure inside the room. Rebecca looked at me then. Really looked at me for the first time all night. People reveal themselves during collapse. Some rage. Some bargain. Rebecca calculated. I watched the math moving behind her eyes. Exposure. Reputation. Divorce court. Social circles. Investor wives. Country club gossip. Charity. Boards. Tyler already buried her by saving himself. Margaret ended the call with one final instruction. Counsel will contact you tomorrow morning. I strongly recommend preserving every remaining document exactly as it exists tonight. The line disconnected. Rebecca lowered the phone slowly. Her confidence had vanished completely now. She opened her mouth once, closed it again, then stared toward the folder still sitting open across the marble island. That was when her second phone started vibrating inside her purse. I recognized the burner number immediately. Tyler Green was calling from a prepaid line. Rebecca grabbed the burner phone from her purse so fast, she almost dropped it. Her eyes locked on the screen for half a second before she turned away from me and answered in a low voice. What? No greeting. No warmth. Just damage control. I walked toward the built-in espresso machine slowly, more interested in her reaction than the actual conversation. Fear strips performance away faster than truth ever could. Tyler sounded frantic even through the muffled speaker. Rebecca pressed the phone tighter against her ear and paced toward the far end of the kitchen island. Lower your voice, she hissed. Wrong move again. Panic always narrows perception. She forgot I already knew enough to destroy both of them. The details only entertained me at this point. I poured espresso into a small black cup, while Tyler's voice cracked through the line again. They subpoenaed my firm email archive. Rebecca froze completely. There it was. The moment she realized the affair had escaped private territory and entered legal territory. Huge difference. Affairs survive secrets. Financial investigations survive documentation. You said you handled this, she snapped quietly. Tyler fired back immediately. I handled what you told me. You never mentioned the post-nuptial trigger clause. Silence. Sharp. Heavy. Rebecca looked toward me again, and this time I saw something new in her expression. Betrayal. Tyler had crossed the line from partner to liability in less than 24 hours. Happens all the time when money enters survival mode. Keep your voice down, Rebecca whispered again. Tyler ignored her completely now. Your husband structured everything months ago. He baited the transfer requests. Jesus Christ, Rebecca, the holding companies were already shielded before you touched a single account. I took a slow sip of espresso and leaned against the counter. Tyler finally understood the architecture. Too late. 7 weeks earlier, Margaret and I created layered separation between operational revenue and marital exposure. We moved distribution contracts into protected management entities tied to my father's original estate trust. Then we rerouted executive compensation through deferred infrastructure reinvestment schedules. Perfectly legal. Perfectly documented. Rebecca spent months studying visible assets while the real structure shifted underneath her feet. You told me Ethan kept everything under direct ownership, Tyler continued. That was the whole strategy. Rebecca closed her eyes briefly, like she wanted the conversation to disappear through sheer force of embarrassment. I gave you the financial summaries. You gave me screenshots, Tyler shot back. Screenshots from surface accounts. Amateur mistake. Social media culture trained people to believe screenshots equal evidence. Real financial structures live inside operating agreements, trust schedules, tax allocations, debt layering, and executive contingencies. Wealthy men lose fortunes because they marry emotionally and structure financially like teenagers. My father taught me the opposite after his second business partner stole $6 million through diluted equity transfers back in 2003. Paper first. Emotions second, he used to say. Rebecca built her strategy around optics. I built mine around paper. Tyler lowered his voice suddenly. Listen carefully. The ethics review board already contacted my senior partners. Rebecca pressed her fingers against her forehead. Can they prove anything? Bad question. Guilty people always ask about proof before innocence. Tyler exhaled sharply into the phone. They already have transaction overlap, private consultations during active marital concealment, and communication logs. He paused for a second before adding the sentence that changed her entire posture. Your husband also hired a digital forensics firm. That landed hard. Rebecca looked at me immediately after hearing it. I held eye contact this time. Calm. Steady. She finally understood the scale of preparation. Months earlier, after discovering encrypted messaging apps hidden inside a disguised finance calculator program on her phone, I hired Blackridge Digital Security out of Austin. Former federal cyber investigators. Expensive. Ruthless. Efficient. They cloned metadata trails from shared cloud environments Rebecca forgot existed. Deleted files. Archived chats. Burner account recovery. Geolocation overlap. Human beings always leave digital fingerprints behind eventually, especially arrogant ones. Tyler's voice dropped almost to a whisper now. Rebecca, they recovered the hotel footage from Denver. Her entire body went still. Rebecca lowered the burner phone slowly like it had gained weight in her hand. Tyler kept talking somewhere on the other end, voice thin and frantic, but she barely listened anymore. The phrase hotel footage had shattered whatever confidence she still carried into this kitchen. She finally ended the call without another word and stood completely still beside the marble island. I watched her carefully over the rim of my espresso cup. 5 years of marriage taught me every version of Rebecca Walker. Charming Rebecca. Ambitious Rebecca. Social climber Rebecca. Tonight introduced a new one. Cornered Rebecca. What footage? She asked quietly. Calm voice. Dead eyes. That combination usually means somebody already knows the answer. I set the cup down beside the sink and reached into the folder again. Another envelope slid across the counter toward her. White. Unmarked. Inside sat 6 printed still frames from the Crescent Peak Hotel in Denver. Elevator timestamps. Lobby camera angles. Parking garage entries. Rebecca and Tyler arrived separately within 9 minutes of each other during the Walker Freight Infrastructure Conference back in April. Tyler entered through the east garage wearing a Rockies baseball cap like a teenager hiding from mall security. Rebecca used the executive elevator tied to my corporate suite access privileges. She forgot hotel systems archive digital key activity automatically. Wealthy people grow addicted to convenience. Convenience creates records. Rebecca flipped through the photos silently. Her breathing slowed this time. Strange thing about panic. After the first shock wave passes, the brain shifts into survival processing. You had me followed for months, she muttered. I had contracts audited. I corrected. Then patterns started overlapping. Another important difference. She still framed this emotionally. I framed it operationally. Affairs create emotional chaos. Financial exposure creates measurable risk. Walker Freight carried federal transportation contracts worth $26 million annually. Executive scandal alone could trigger investor concern. Hidden financial manipulation attached to executive family accounts could trigger regulatory review. Rebecca never understood scale because she spent years admiring outcomes instead of infrastructure. She saw private flights and Aspen houses. I saw lender confidence ratios and compliance thresholds. Tyler said the ethics board already contacted his firm. She said carefully. There it was again. Tyler first. Marriage second. Interesting priorities for somebody still wearing a 6-carat wedding ring. I leaned against the counter and studied her expression. Tyler lost control 3 days ago. What does that mean? It means he tried negotiating. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Finally, curiosity breaking through fear. 3 nights earlier, Tyler requested a private meeting through Margaret. Desperate men always ask for side doors after realizing the main exit collapsed. We met inside a conference room on the 32nd floor of a downtown Dallas law tower. Tyler arrived sweating through a $1,200 suit, pretending confidence still lived somewhere inside him. He carried 2 phones, 1 legal pad, and enough anxiety to poison the entire room. Margaret destroyed him within 20 minutes. She laid out metadata recovery reports, consulting invoices, encrypted message extractions, and timeline overlaps tied directly to Rebecca's transfer activity. Tyler tried minimizing everything at first. Emotional mistake. Margaret deals in paper, not narratives. Then she showed him the forensic reconstruction tied to the Denver hotel system. That changed the room immediately. Rebecca stared at me harder now. What happened in Denver? Another revealing question. She asked what happened instead of what you think happened. Language exposes guilt faster than evidence sometimes. I reached back into the folder one last time and removed a black flash drive. Small object. Heavy consequences. Denver mattered because Tyler made one catastrophic mistake, I said calmly. He used the hotel business center printer under his own bar credentials. Rebecca's face tightened instantly. She remembered. Good. The printer cached every scanned document for 90 days before automatic purge, I continued. Blackridge recovered the full archive 48 hours before deletion. Rebecca whispered one word under her breath. Jesus. I slid the flash drive across the marble toward her. You should see what he scanned. She hesitated before picking it up. That hesitation told me everything. Deep down, Rebecca already feared the answer. Then her phone lit up again beside the wine glass. This time the notification came from First National Private Banking. Account access suspended pending internal review. Rebecca grabbed the phone instantly after the banking notification appeared. Her fingers moved faster now, sharper, desperate. She opened the app, entered her credentials twice, then froze halfway through the authentication screen. Restricted access banner. Red lettering. Internal compliance review pending. Temporary suspension on outbound transfers. She looked up at me slowly. You contacted my bank. Your bank contacted me first, I answered. Executive exposure clauses trigger automatically when financial irregularities intersect active litigation risk. Another silence filled the kitchen. Heavy one this time. Rebecca used to love financial language when it worked in her favor. Investment dinners. Venture capital parties. Real estate syndicates over expensive bourbon. She loved sounding sophisticated around people who inherited wealth instead of building it. Tonight those same systems wrapped around her throat like steel cables. This is retaliation, she said carefully. No, I replied. This is containment. Huge difference. Retaliation comes from anger. Containment comes from preparation. Rebecca still wanted this story to revolve around betrayal and emotions because emotional narratives create sympathy. Financial manipulation creates legal exposure. Sympathy disappears fast once compliance departments enter the room. She unlocked the flash drive with trembling hands and connected it to her laptop sitting near the edge of the island. Smart house lighting reflected against the dark screen, while encrypted folders loaded one by one. Denver archive. Tyler extraction. Executive Risk Summary. Rebecca clicked the first folder. Security stills filled the screen immediately. Elevator timestamps. Keycard records. Digital room entries. Metadata overlays. Blackridge reconstructed the entire 48-hour timeline from the Denver conference using hotel access logs, parking garage scans, wireless handshake records, and synchronized device locations. Rebecca watched herself enter Tyler's suite at 9:14 p.m. wearing the silver conference dress she bought 2 days before the trip. She exited 3 hours later carrying my company presentation binder under her arm. Her face tightened instantly after seeing that detail. Good. She finally understood the real problem. Walker Freight confidential material entered that room too. You accused me of cheating when this entire time you built a surveillance operation around me, she snapped suddenly. Wrong framing again. I built risk assessment after discovering unauthorized financial movement tied to executive accounts. You track my devices. You signed the device consent policy attached to the family office structure 2 years ago. Rebecca closed her eyes hard for a second. Another memory returning. Another signature she skimmed because she trusted appearances more than paperwork. People expose themselves through impatience. They rush contracts. Skip clauses. Assume charm outruns consequences. Wealth rewards disciplined readers and destroys careless ones. She clicked another folder. This one held extracted message logs between her and Tyler. Thousands of lines recovered through cloud sync remnants and archived device pairings. Most messages centered around divorce positioning, asset division strategy, timing, public optics. Tyler coached her constantly. Push emotional neglect. Document emotional distance. Avoid direct transfers until restructuring completes. Amateur legal theater dressed up as sophistication. Then Rebecca opened the final recovered thread. Her face changed instantly. Real shock this time. Deep. Personal. Tyler's private messages with another woman filled the screen. Different client. Different married woman. Same language. Same promises. Same manipulation patterns copied almost word for word. Rebecca scrolled faster. Aspen references. Future plans. Identical compliments Tyler fed her months earlier now repeated to someone else 4 states away. You are the only woman who truly understands me. Cheap line. Expensive consequences. Rebecca stared at the screen silently while humiliation finally overtook anger. Affairs survive fantasy. Fantasy dies the second repetition appears. He played you, I said quietly. She looked toward me sharply. Eyes glossy now. Vulnerable for the first time all night. Strange thing about betrayal. The pain shifts once people realize they were never special inside the deception. Tyler never chose Rebecca. He selected opportunity, influence, access, ego reinforcement. Same reason Rebecca drifted toward him in the first place. Predators recognize matching appetites fast. Rebecca shut the laptop suddenly and stepped back from the counter like the files carried poison. How long, she whispered. How long have you known? I held her gaze steadily. Long enough to move everything worth protecting. That answer hit harder than any accusation. Because she finally realized something terrifying. The marriage ended for me months ago. Then another notification appeared on her laptop screen. Incoming email from Walker Freight Board Compliance Division. Subject line. Emergency Executive Review meeting scheduled for 8 a.m. Rebecca stared at the compliance email as if it had rewritten her future. In a single subject line. Her face lost color while she read it again, searching for a softer meaning that did not exist. You involved the board, she whispered. I shook my head. Compliance did, after detecting executive exposure tied to confidential infrastructure files. Fear flashed across her eyes. Walker Freight handled medical supply routes across 4 states, and those contracts carried federal oversight, strict confidentiality clauses, and device records attached to every executive file. Rebecca had carried my projection binder into Tyler's Denver suite while he represented divorce clients against transportation executives. Motive no longer mattered. Exposure did. I never gave him company information. She snapped too quickly. You brought confidential projections into a private meeting with an attorney under ethics review, I said. Compliance cares about liability first. Her hands tightened on the marble island. You're destroying my life over an affair. No. You built this structure yourself. I stopped protecting you from consequences. For years I had covered credit card overages, failed investments, tax penalties, and reckless real estate flips because marriage still felt like partnership. She mistook protection for weakness. Now she paced in tight circles, calculating exits. What happens tomorrow at 8? Compliance review. Board counsel. Internal audit. External legal oversight. Her jaw tightened. And me? That depends how honest you become before sunrise. Her anger faded into exhaustion. She accused me of planning everything, and I answered honestly. After Denver, yes. Her migraine lie, Tyler's corridor exit, the wrong background sound in her text, the sweet key logs between midnight and 2. Each detail opened another door. What do you want? She asked. I closed the folder. Truth. Every account, transfer, and hidden communication. She stared at the counter, then whispered, there is another account. Tyler had opened it through a Nevada investment group, hiding $840,000 from joint liquidity and executive bonuses. My phone buzzed. Board counsel had found one more name.